Hey Beau, what is the relationship between personality and perception? Does one affect the other, or are they interconnected?
So it's a really good question, and today I'm answering it from Budapest. Where am I? I'm in Budapest, and right behind me is the Danube. Just back from yet another run in this case, along the Danube. So, what is the relationship between personality and perception, and does one affect the other? The answer to that question is that they are fundamentally related in some sense. Personality is, in psychology, they're defined by what we call the big five. That's extroversion, openness to experience, conscientiousness, agreeableness, and neuroticism. And what are these traits? These are different ways to approach life. And really importantly, they are in each of us. All of them are within each of us. So let's think of an analogy of what they are. Consider dance. So dance is like a person's approach to music. And next time when the world opens up and you're back at the nightclub and you're out dancing, look around you. And you'll notice that everyone is dancing, of course, to the same beat, the same sound, the same notes, and yet everyone is moving in a different way. And each person's movement towards that sound is unique to them. But though unique, it's not random. Someone might be sort of jumping in rhythm. Another might be sort of bringing their feet together, then moving it apart. Another might not move their feet at all, but only move their hips. And then others might just only be moving their arms while they stand still. And so these movement traits are like your personality traits. But like personality, we don't just use one dance move. Often it's a combination. So someone might be bringing their feet together and moving apart while they're moving their hips, moving forward and backward, which is like salsa. And it's those combinations of movements that reflect your perception of the meaning of the music that you're listening to. So quite literally, the meaning of the sound stimulus. And these meanings and feelings of, say, salsa is different from the meaning of, say, pogoing. So similar to your personality, the combination of movements are your way to approach life, which reflects your perceived meaning of any given stimulus, any given situation that you're experiencing. It's fundamental to your perception of the world, but also to yourself in relation to that world. And it's as much about looking outward as it is looking inward. So like dancing, you're a combination of your personality traits. Now you might be biased towards, say, neuroticism and introversion, and that approach, or say that dance, will be different from someone who is maybe more biased towards extroversion and openness. But there's something that's really important here, which is too often ignored and can even be denied within both, even in science, but also in particular within oneself, which is that your personality, like your perception, is not fixed. Your personality changes, your personality evolves. In fact, as we get older, our personalities shift. You don't have the same personality you did when you were a child. And your personality needs to, just like your perception needs to evolve. It needs to expand. Because as perception teaches us, context is everything. In a different context, you can actually change your combination of personality traits. You can change your approach to the world, and in fact you should. So in some situations you might find yourself to be more extroverted and in others more introverted, or in another situation you might find yourself being really open and another to be quite closed. But the challenge for many people is that they assume they are one thing, that there is an essence to them. So instead of adapting to change, or in fact even to prevent the need to adapt to change, we so often create conditions in our life where we don't have to change. We put barriers around ourselves and tell ourselves that these barriers are good. I mean, how many times have you heard, I hear this all the time, well, something like, well, that's just not me, or, I would never do that, it's just not who I am. Or they'll say, well, you know what, I know I need to do that, but first I must do these other things. It gives the illusion, the slather strategy gives the illusion of logic, gives the illusion of getting things done. But there's always a reason, a hurdle that one, must jump over before they do the thing that they know they must do. It's always, but first I must. When in fact it's nothing more, often, not always, nothing more than a strategy of basically blocking oneself from doing what they know they should do. But there's so much that is within you that is possible, both good and bad. And to deny that is to deny not only your potential, but also to blind yourself to how you might actually be hurting yourself or even hurting someone else. But this idea of living within clearly stated boundaries is so often espoused by pop psychologists and self-help books that you might read and their adherents. But yes, of course, constraints are essential for creativity. We know this, right? And yet, from the perspective of the science of biology and evolution and neuroscience and perception, I know of very few boundaries that transcend all possible contexts. I mean, think of all the boundaries in history that we once treated as if they were laws of physics, that they could never be shifted, but have since been destroyed, and for the good, right? That's evolution. So be careful of the boundaries that you decide to create, as they can wall you away from the need for contextual thinking. Now, admittedly, contextual thinking is hard, since it requires letting go of what you thought to be true before. It's hard to apply nuance towards others that are different from you, because that requires applying doubt towards yourself. Much easier to live within immutable walls by a list of rules or a religion or a recipe that is imposed on all the contexts that you will ever experience, and not just yours, but on other people. It'd be like only ever having one way to dance, to only have one movement, to only ever be pogoing, or only ever moving your feet like this, right? But what happens when the music changes? Are you continuing to just bounce up and down? Or when the beat slows and the cello kicks in, do you not change the way you move? So to be adaptable, we need principles, not boundaries. We need bridges and not moats. So find the principles in your life that matter. If these principles, because it's these principles that underpin all your perceptions, including the way of being towards the world, in other words, your personality. And remember, we know from perception that context is everything. To engage in the world with perceptual intelligence is to engage in the world contextually. So when considering your personality, your type, do you approach the world, do you approach every situation in the same way? So try not to understand your personality as such. Try to understand the context in which different aspects of your personality become manifest, right? Since that's what will tell you a great deal more about who you are, the context that inspires a different way of being. Think about each situation in your music, think about every situation in your life like music. How does that situation, how does that music make you want to move, make you want to dance? Because there isn't just one way. And engaging in life like music and changing the way you move, changing your personality, creates the possibility for being agile in your thinking and being resilient in your way of being. It's actually fundamental to what I call your perceptual intelligence. So thanks a lot.